welcome to episode 3 of the Science of Golf Performance podcast. I am Alex.
I'm Bobby.
And I'm Chris.
And we are going to talk about rotational power.
What's the best way to improve rotational power?
Well, I mean,
I feel like I can feel rotational power happening around me.
Me too. It's weird.
Or maybe not. I don't know.
Is it gone?
It's another social media thing that I see a lot of interesting exercises, though.
Yes.
Interesting is a nice word.
Yeah.
I think the more golf-like it looks, the better it helps you play golf, right?
I mean, that's what the sell is, right? And I think that's the important thing as a coach is to understand what's like selling, like marketing, versus what's real science. So I think unfortunately there's a lot of stuff out there that says it's science-backed or research-backed, and it's because it's a case study. And there's a total loss of understanding of what true research is.
Yeah.
And a case study is not a high level at all of evidence. So I think when we talk about rotational power, I think let's kind of go through. We've got a list here of kind of the most common things that we see as sold as kind of power
That we
exercises.
cringe at and laugh at and send each other, make each other angry. So
It's usually you sending me
Well,
stuff and
yes.
hoping that I'm going to do something
if I see it, you
on
have to
social
see it
media.
too.
That's not.
There's a long feed that we have.
Chris, don't do it. But I think this is not. I think it's the goal here is we're not picking on any individual. It's what we're trying to do here is we're trying to educate you, the viewer, as the coach, or if you're a golfer yourself, in terms of what's the truth and the research behind a lot of this versus what I think kind of gets twisted and quote unquote sold. So I think the first one that I feel like there's a Bosu ball potentially in the shot. I don't know.
It's making me a little upset.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So there was a study done, I guess Cressy did, and that was kind of the first big study on unstable surfaces, right? What was the finding here?
Well, yeah. So around the late '80s, early '90s, even into the 2000s, like unstable surface training was all rage, right? If you can do it on an unstable surface, well, you must be able to do it on a stable surface even better, right?
So the cover of it was Golf Magazine, Golf Digest, with Dustin Johnson standing on a ball, swinging a golf club,
Yeah, so in theory, sure, that makes sense, right? But in practice, when you actually look at the research, you see a lot actually less force production when you're on an unstable surface. And unless there was 12 inches of rain the day before, or you're in a really bad sand bunker, I don't think golf is played on an unstable surface, right?
No.
Even when I'm in the water, it's
I mean,
not
we should
unstable
ask the one
surface.
handicapper.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I didn't think so, but you tell me.
Yeah. But I think let's explain why does standing on an unstable surface, why does that actually decrease the amount of power or force that somebody's able to produce?
I think we go back to ground reaction forces, which we talked a little about last episode, if you didn't see that. But the ability to produce force, the more you can really grab onto the ground with your foot, with your lower body, to produce force. And when you're on an unstable surface, such as a Bosu ball, first thing I'm like is, I'm not going to be able to produce much force at all standing on something like that.
Because all your energy is going to not falling on your face, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, more on the stability muscles and balance.
Well, and that's why Bobby mentioned, I'm playing in a wet. If it's really, really wet out, you'll notice you don't hit it as far. And part of that's because the ball's not going to roll. But the other part is because you can't push into the ground as much, so you're not going to get as much back out of the ground, which your club head speed actually will be a little bit slow.
Exactly.
So I think that's, in terms of unstable surfaces, check or cross that out as non-top rotational.
Right.
Yeah, and then I think, and then there's, what else? We got other training aids here. So like Orange Whip, I think that's a great tool to use for like sequencing or loosening up. But I think there's sometimes a mistake where that's a power tool. It is not going to improve your power. It may help your sequencing a little bit or help you loosen up. But remember, power is how much force can you produce and how fast you can produce it, right? Simple equation. And my son in kindergarten is doing 1 + 1 is 2, right? Force plus speed equals power.
Times.
Yes. All right, technical guy. But so like the Orange Whip is not improving your speed. and it's not improving how much force you can produce. Kinematically, if we can create a more efficient sequence or create more separation, maybe you can leverage elasticity or something that may help you.
That's only going to get you so far, though. So just using that as your only training tool, you might see a nice increase. It might make you feel better before you play, but at some point you're going to plateau. Especially with what we see with our adults, if you're not doing training outside of that, your body's naturally going to lose some speed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think then the stick is another common. We have a lot of our members that use that. Again, great for mobility, a power training tool. I think the big two, the more popular at this point now, Mach 3 and super speed, or kind of the overspeed type training. So what's the deal with that?
Well, I think if we're talking about power, right, your ability to produce force over a certain amount of time, there's only so much force again that you can put into those, right? So think about how heavy even the heaviest of the overspeed training implements is. It's really not nearly as much as we can put even on a beginner for back squat.
Awkward silence as you think deeply. No, but I think with those systems, they target the speed side of the power equation. I think a lot of times people mistake power and strength. They kind of use them as interchangeable, and they're very different. So how much force you can produce, that's really like how strong you are, right? So the overspeed or the Mach 3, those tend to definitely the overspeed training is more speed-based. Mm-hmm. Mach 3, I think it's a little confusing. I think some of it is technique-based and oriented and with the speed out in front. Mm-hmm. There is going to be some effective overspeed-based there. Obviously, the concern, if you haven't seen our research, is a lot of the volume with both of those systems. So I think that's, if we kind of look at a lot of the training aids, none of them are really going to improve your overall power.
Right.
There's a time when using each of those may be appropriate. Unstable surface training, great in a rehab type setting. Sometimes. Trying to be positive here. I think the Mach 3 or overspeed, great when there's a gap in terms of somebody's creates a lot of power athletically, maybe doesn't have the sport specificity in terms of the power. So if you look at our research there's a gap in terms of their power percentiles are a really high percentile, but their club head speeds at a really low percentile. That's like green light, go there, assuming mobility obviously is clear. And I think you got Orange Whip, the stick, those are kind of supplemental tools that we can utilize around in a program as well too, right?
And of course, the most important and the most effective ones we can talk about, what we've seen in-house and we're lucky enough to have are things like the K-pulley, the K-box, so it's an eccentric tool to really overload the system. And what we've seen, part of our research, which is free on our website, that the K-pulley and K-box produce a substantial amount of power in rotational power. I know you know the numbers like off the top of your head.
That's why we wrote them down for you, Alex. I think, and so let's talk about the K-pulley, because that obviously that had the we're not being paid or anything to say this. This is, I don't care what tool you use, eccentric overload in a rotational or transverse plane is basically what we saw that had incredible output in terms of incredible transference to the golf swing in terms of swing speed gains, right? How does that work? Why should the coach watching this or the golfer watching this? How would you guys explain it?
Eccentric training?
Yeah, or like what that did, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it gave someone who's maybe not able to really overload traditional weight training the ability to overload. It's hard to have, the 50-plus population maxing out, putting a lot of weight on their back for back squats or pulling heavy deadlifts from the floor, which is beneficial and we love to see. But with these tools, we're able to kind of more safely for that person create that stimulus, that's an overload stimulus, so that they are producing that likely outcome of rotational power.
Yeah, so I think our research we looked at, we did the full year was like 1 mile an hour about every 12 weeks.
Yep.
We did this study was a randomized study. We did 6 weeks, right?
Yep.
And we saw on the K-box, which is more kind of squatting, deadlifting, more vertical. That was 1.3 in 6 weeks, which so half the time, pretty much the same game.
Exactly.
Pretty much the same as the control group in that study as well. But the Cape Pulley we saw actually doubled that, so 2.6. So that's more than 150% in half the time. So I think we talked about last episode with med ball training rotationally. I think traditionally we use light implements, or we think we're using heavy implements with a 20-pound ball, which really screws you over because you're going slow and it's not really that heavy.
Right.
But with the Cape Pulley, you actually get so much more load with that eccentric flywheel. You get a lot more strength gain, I think, in that rotational plane. So when we go back to that basic equation of power equals force plus speed, we really increase that force production in that specific plane.
And with like the med ball exercise, like you said, can be a really good tool for rotational movement, rotational sequencing, but we don't necessarily see a great producing or increase in power with those to really overload that system in a manner where you're going to be still moving efficiently. The Cape Pulley is a great tool to do that.
I think people had a lot of fun with it. Once they got the rhythm of the movement, they had a lot of fun. And I think too, there's a good way to show people that intent is really important, right? So we're constantly coaching people, for all of the, whether you're using the Cape Pulley or just your standard cable weights or your bands, right, for some of the other moves, put intent behind the movement so you're actually producing more power output, right? If you're just going through these movements kind of willy-nilly without any oomph behind it, you're not going to get the gains. Whereas I think everyone really understood, hey, the more effort I put into this, the more this is going to bring out of me.
Yeah, it kind of puts you not in a completely fixed position with Cape Pulley, but with the med balls, if you're not in a fixed position, they have to think more about coordination. And if they're not doing that, then the Cape Pulley is really effective in putting them in the right position.
Yeah. So I think when we're looking at kind of the group types, 3 types of best exercises to improve rotational power, I think we're saying eccentric flywheel or overloading in the rotational plane, number 1.
Great. If you have that technology available too.
Right. But I think the other thing too is regardless of what you're doing, do something with feedback. Like that's where the assess to perform ballistic ball, that gives you feedback if we're doing medicine ball work. The Cape Pulley gives you feedback in terms of the Bluetooth capability to your phone. How much did you put into that? If you're doing swing overspeed training, maybe use the device to make sure you're outputting the same. Just a little speed monitor. So I think if you're coaching, giving someone feedback, don't let them get away with rainbows on their med ball throws. Make them be lasers, or
just slowly going through your chop movement.
Right, because I want to feel the position.
Right.
It's great if you're doing technical work, I guess, but not if you're in the gym trying to produce power. Right. So hopefully that helps. In that I don't think that there's a bad device or a bad exercise necessarily. I just think it's confusing out there in terms of when to use what. And I think hopefully at this point, 12, 13 minutes in, you've hopefully laughed at us a few times, but also learned a couple things in terms of the actual gains that you can have with a lot less work. And I think that's what we're all looking for, is how can we get maximal gains with the least amount of work. So if you enjoyed the content, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And then obviously share it with your friends, your colleagues, clients, golfers, anybody who you think is going to benefit from kind of understanding the better ways of rotational power. And please let us know if there's any weird people behind us doing some weird things with exercises that look like they should be power, but they're not. There's been reports of those flying around here at our gym here at Power Success.
Get them out of here.
Yeah. So, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. And we will see you next episode.